Hello, is this one a Cyclopean wall? Well, to answer that question, one needs first to clarify what it means to be Cyclopean, a topic that has remained contentious for millennia, and that we'll try to fix with today's walls, called Castellaras, and located in the most wonderful region of the Alpes Maritimes in the south of France. Cyclopean walls got their name out of a bundle of confusions, made by ancient and new experts alike, leading these walls to achieve an aura of mystery, not the least because even their name is disputed. It started with some classical authors saying the walls in Mycenae were built by Cyclops. Whatever that meant, we don't know, since we do not have a single original text and rely only on censored copies. Then, later on, like 200 years ago, as history and travel became fashionable in Europe, Cyclopean was revived and used to describe a type of global construction, in which the walls are made with irregular stones, cut to fit one to another, or with big blocks randomly piled up until recently, when the name ended up as an adjective for brutish work and a swear word amongst academics, who believe ignoring is a proper solution for their ignorance. During all this time, and despite the negligence by the hoity-toity, the walls kept on standing tall, inviting an assortment of weirdos to come up with varied theories, ranging from being built by one-eyed giant aliens to my own proposal that you will like. In my view, Cyclopean is referring to an ancient culture, a group of people with common tastes and beliefs that lived throughout Europe during prehistory, notably in the Bronze Age, and are now called by various names such as Iberian, Pelasgian, or evidently Cyclops. The most unmistakable trait of a Cyclopean builder was that they built Cyclopean walls. Imagine that. Assembling odd-shaped stones without mortar into awesome rock puzzles. That much does not usually raise unibrows. Most Cyclopean walls are clearly Cyclopean, but that may not be the case with the Castellaras, which seem on the brink of not qualifying. That's because the Castellaras are poorly fitted, with a pile of stones of random shapes that do not impress, in sharp contrast with other way more sophisticated Cyclopean works. Take it like this. The polygonal walls can be found on three levels. One at the top is very rare, like we can see in Alaka Oyuk, Turkey, with a 3D curved fitted surface that defy explanation on how they were built. 2. The middle is quite common in Europe, with polygonal sharp blocks assembled into a puzzle that, although achievable with simpler tools, required impressive dedication and coordination, thus proving there was a sophisticated culture behind them. Then the lower three with the jumble of poorly fitted or smaller stones that is neither so impressive nor so difficult, but we can see the relation to the others, with the apparent risk of collapse being evaded for millennia, such as the case of the Castellaras. If it was for the quality of the stonework alone, the Castellaras would probably be out of contention for being called Cyclopean, in the sense of those massive works that makes us wonder about giants. Still, there are other characteristics that almost compensate, namely the numbers. In an area of no more than 50 kilometers across, there are remains of 459 similar constructions, with about 15 preserved examples visible in an even shorter distance, literally from one hill to the next, revealing both a Cyclopean trait and also how their name is inadequate. These things are called Castellara, that translates as castle, but like so many other Cyclopean constructions, also called fort or castro, they are not military. By being smallish, lacking water supply, and in close proximity, spread apart just a few hundred meters from one another, each on its own dry hilltop, the defense value offered by these structures against an invading force was limited. On the other hand, the show-off value was noticeable. That is why we can deduce the Castellaras, like the Torreon in Corsica or the Nuraghe in Sardinia, were built mostly for vanity, exhibiting one characteristic common to many other Cyclopean cultures, their politics. Cyclopean cultures were clan-based, without a central power and with each unit or village visibly proud of their little place in the world, devoting extra work to erect structures top of every other hill. This also suggests they might be older than said for maintaining small clan-based units, in contrast with the empires and cities common during the Iron Age. Cyclopean walls do not appear out of nowhere. There is something of a flow of events that leads into them, basically with the construction technique moving to the Cyclopean after the megalithic, the big blocks, dolmens and menhirs. France as a whole is one of the best areas to find all sorts of megalithic marvels, like the world-famous Karnak in the northwest, and with the southern coast, although less famous, also exhibiting all sorts of interesting boulders. Right in the core of the Castellaras we have plenty of dolmens. These are simple structures, not very large, nor unique in design. But if we go 100 kilometers west, we will find a few that are truly outstanding. One is featuring a canal opening or a cat flap. That's the technical term, as we only see in the Caucasus, leaving us to wonder if these people here were not going back and forth and exchanging ideas over there. Another one has some mixed stonework, sort of Cyclopean, integrated into the chamber, making up for one of the few cases where we can see how the big block megalithic construction could evolve into a Cyclopean culture. There are also the caves, called hypogeums. They are like dolmens partially dug into the bedrock, a variation of the main idea that demanded extra stonework to accomplish. Deserving much more attention is the impluvium, or water reservatory. It is an unmatched water storage facility built with megalithic technology. Finally, there is the so-called basin. This one is back in the middle of the Castellaras and reinforces the Cyclopean characteristic of the area, not only because we have no idea what these things were made for, but also that other Cyclopean sites have very similar abstract sculptures nearby, such as seen in Ulacca, Spain, or Bomarzo, Italy. seen all these wonderful works, we can rest assured Castellaras had proper megalithic pedigree. But on the other hand, all that big block constructions happened in the 4th or 5th millennium BC, and the Castellaras are said to be much later than that, allowing for something to come in between. The Castellaras and many other fortified cities called oppidum throughout the south of France, plus the north of Italy and all the way into Catalonia by some accounts, are said to belong to the Ligurian, an ancient Iron Age people that could be somewhat between the Celts and the Cyclopean builders, or even have never existed, as, like all the other events in the Bronze Age, they are but a blur. Later on, when the Romans settle down, we finally get some sort of accurate sources. By then, these places are said to be dominated by Celts or Gauls, to the point that even the existence of the Ligurian becomes uncertain, overwhelmed first by the Gauls and then by the Romans. To sort out this puzzle, or to make it worse, bureaucrats have decided to invent an hybrid, the Celto-Ligurian, that is extremely versatile at being meaningless. For the Celts' part, it is out of the question to be called Cyclopean, because they are not. They don't build Cyclopean walls. The Celts, known as Gauls in France, would build walls with their own style, called by the Romans as the murus gallicus, that, although not using proper mortar to secure the stones, had, on the other hand, replaced the fitting with wooden beams and filled the interior of the clearly military structures with earth. That technique was clever, but not Cyclopean, and spread out all over France and further away in Central Europe, reaching up until Romania, whilst the Cyclopean works are only present in the south of Europe, near the coast, and within France limited to the Castellaras. There is yet another reason for the Celts not being Cyclopean. They cremated their dead. And that is a big no-no for every Cyclopean culture, from Iberia to Georgia. All Cyclopean builders would practice inhumation, burying the dead bodies intact, not burnt. And thus, the foreign custom of roasting dead relatives, as practiced by the Celts, is a dead giveaway for a different cultural heritage. Academics have this annoying habit of dismissing how cultures would handle their dead, as if it was of secondary importance. But they are wrong. All the ancient people we encounter today are dead, and thus whatever happened to their dead bodies is obviously important. In the region of the Castellaras there are proper tombs, not barbecues, dated from the Bronze Age, indicating inhumation was in fact practiced by the local population back then. Then, coming the Iron Age, we see a shift into cremation with the arrival of the Celts, or the invention of the Celto-Ligurian, offering a likely sequence of events, with the Old Megalithic being displaced by the Celts and or the Ligurian, except in the small land of the Castellaras. More evidence separating the Ligurian from the Cyclopean is that there was some Ligurian writing, with some tablets with scribbles found in the north of Italy. That is different because all the Cyclopean walls in Europe and also the Castellaras are blank, without signs of writing onto them. Thus, since the Cyclopes were not writing, we are left guessing what they said, based only on indirect clues such as the names of places or folk tales. A similar process was used to the written yet undeciphered Ligurian, leading most experts to think Ligurian is likely Indo-European, as is the Celtic. The languages we speak today are part of a family called the Indo-European that entered Europe at the beginning of the Bronze Age and expanded west for over 1,000 years. In the process, the new Indo-European languages replaced some older ones, like the Nuragic, the Pelasgian, and the Ibero, leaving us to wonder that all those lost sounds could be part of a different family, the Cyclopean family of languages. Who did write about this region deeper in the past were the classical Greeks, and they might offer our exit to this conundrum. For the ancient Greek authors, the inhabitants of southern France were not the Ligurians, but a nearly mythical population called the Leagues. And those leagues may or not, likely not, have been associated with the Ligurian later on. Thus, we have here a possible solution. What if the Castellaras were built by the lost leagues, or some remnants of them, living isolated in the mountains, harassed by the upcoming Celts, Ligurians, and even Celto-Ligurians? It is just an hypothesis, but we do have similar cases with Cyclopean cultures that experts don't agree existed, such as the Pelasgians in Greece, the Saturnian in Italy, and the Leagues in the Alpes Maritimes. Here's the thing, the Ligurian and even the Celto-Ligurian, if existed, were not Cyclopean, because they cremated their dead, had writing, and not the least, they did not build Cyclopean walls in their large domains, thus failing in the Cyclopean test. Whilst that, there is a small blimp in the mountains with the Castellaras. Those are likely Cyclopean, not so much in the sense of being built with giant boulders tightly fitted, but because they share some of the other cultural markers we can see around Europe, namely, the clan-based politics, the absence of writing in a non-Indo-European language, the inhumation burial grounds, the probable dating from the Bronze Age, the existence of a lost ancient people, as in the Leagues, and last but not least, the close proximity to many other Cyclopean areas in the Mediterranean, making the idea of one Cyclopean culture easier to accept. Granted, it would be more difficult if there was like an ocean in the middle. Difficult but not impossible, as we'll see next. That's it for today. Hope you liked it. See you in the comments.